Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first story, written by user Nihilistic Phoenix, is titled Helicopter Gothel That Followed Us. As we approach 4 months NC, but still live next door, sadly, I have not even once crossed paths with Helicopter Gothel. Husband has, though, but he simply ignored her. I, on the other hand, have had a couple occasions where sperm donor/y dad has tried to engage in conversation, but he has been ignored too. Every Xmas season in our neighborhood we have some street fairs. You could get cheap stuff for gifts, eat junk, and have a long walk. As we had a lovely Sunday and baby was calm, we put her in the stroller and went there. We had already walked through the first row of stalls, and now we're checking the opposite. It takes about 30 minutes at least to see each side. I was happily checking some toys, and then looked at my husband. He had the cold, murderous face. Me, what is it? Hubs. I just saw your dad and Helicopter Gothel on the other way. She had a massive CBF. I did not see them at all. For them to cross paths with us at that point, I estimate that. We walked in front of their house, and Abler Dad spotted us, then pretended to be interested in street fair. After 5 minutes, got Helicopter Gothel to go with him. More like begged, pictured Dobby face. And it's funny because she loathes everything about those street fairs. Too long a walk, disgusting food smell, not posh at all, too crowded, the crafts are not original, and she made those before and better, the stuff is common, etc. If your dad did not see us, it was my uncle the one to rat on us. Crossed paths first, but he's FM, so we ignored him too. Desi Dad thought this was the chance to see our baby. Lol no, and he had to endure Helicopter Gothel's sourness all the way instead. Ha! It was a tiny bitter spot for the afternoon, but we didn't give a crap because both Hubs and I had got decent, sleek chunks, did chores, ate healthy, and bought new bed sheets. Baby went up a size in diapers, and I got a shower and conditioned my hair. I had my dad an old sock, so he gets free from Helicopter Gothel. The next story is an update, and it is titled Helicopter Gothel's Hair Obsession. The next story is an update, and it is titled Helicopter Gothel's Hair Obsession. A bit backstory. Helicopter Gothel's maternal grandma, GGMA from now, was definitely the first narcissistic JNL in the family. GMA was the scapegoat while her brother was the golden child. Helicopter Gothel is the oldest of her siblings. GGMA, being a controlling and bitter woman, obviously expected control over her granddaughter too. For reasons I've never had clear, maybe to prevent lice, but WTF, she demanded Helicopter Gothel's hair to be kept short. Boy cut short. GMA caved in, and so Helicopter Gothel wore such haircut until well into her teen ages. Being a deranged human already, the only way she found to cope with it was, by her account, putting a long woolen scarf on her head to resemble a long mane, and then look at herself in front of a mirror while playing with it. So, when Helicopter Gothel married, she said up that noise and never again made any drastic change to her haircut. Just kept it hip long and trimmed the tips, nothing else. And when I was born, she kept my hair the same way. It sounds fine at first, doesn't it? She took pride in how low maintenance our manes were, and felt superior by not needing any fancy products to keep them good looking. Also, she loved the fact that we both had the exact same style, because I look a lot like her. Then madness ensued when I was about 12 and wanted something different. A shoulder blade length cut. She never took me to the hairdresser, washed my hair until my teens, and also trimmed the tips. So she was my self-appointed hairdresser, and she completely refused to give me the haircut at first. I pestered her a long while until she accepted. And guys, she cried. She cried while cutting the hair and after, and put the remains on a bag. Because that's how a regular mother reacts. Then I got a bit older and wanted a shoulder length cut. Then she outright said no. I got bored of asking for it, As my parents never gave me money / took it away from me, I couldn't afford going to a salon. I did it myself one night she was away. Next day my hair curled up, and Helicopter Gothel almost had a heart attack. She went nuts, then put me in a chair to fix the edges, but not without screaming at me the whole ducking time and berating me about it. I remember being frightened and crying while she roughly cut with some bait-ass scissors, sometimes scraping my neck. She later blamed it on having had a fight with my father the night before. Sure, completely normal reaction. Years later I grew my hair again, but the obsession remained. Because I'm property, not an individual with no wishes to be her clone. New bangs would be made fun of. Hair dye, of course, she would complain about ruining my hair. And she still ducking keeps some hair locks into Ziploc bags, completely normal. She also thought the way I did my eyebrows and my freaking lady bush were her business. There's light in the horizon, though. She keeps the same haircut, but as menopause has reached her, hair loss and white hairs become more apparent. She might get away with no dye, because white hairs can look pretty too, but the lack of hair will become more and more noticeable. She already has close to no eyebrows. I hope I see the day she ends up having to get a haircut not to look like a cheap doll head. Maybe then she will glue my old locks on to try and recover some old glory. The next story is an update, and it is titled, Quick Reminder on Helicopter Gothel's Insanity. I've been quietly getting close to 6 months NC, despite my father's attempts to communicate with me and so. He hasn't said a single word, as has always been her way. As I've told you before, He lives next door. Houses are fenced but really ducking close, and our bathroom windows face each other, so you hear what goes on the other side. Also, we're in a heat wave, so every window is open. I just put baby to sleep while so snores. Went to the bathroom and I heard music playing from He house. Nursery rhymes. The same artist you put for me and my brother when we were kids. The artist she has always been obsessed with, among her other ways, to create a new childhood for herself. I'll say that story someday. Crap, I still remember the lyrics. If you think that maybe some acquaintance of her is visiting with kids, it's ducking 2400 and dead silent aside from the kitty music. Let that sink in. Now my sleep is noped out talk here, so should I even woke so to tell him, and he mumbled. She's nuts. The next story is an update, and it is titled, My Nil Vanishes Again. DH grew up without his mother since he was 7 years old. According to his father, she left him for other men. Then his version speaks of every evil imaginable, from problems with law to drugs and such. Mind you, he is a deadbeat piece of crap who left DH and SIL years later for another woman whom he had a kid with, so paternal grandma sort of cared for them. Obviously, DH and SIL grew up terrified of their mother and rejected any attempt of contact from her. Now, 20 years later, DH rage toward his mother cooled down and turned against his crap father who had the nerve to evict us from their house. A whole mess, but now it's not relevant. Grandma turned out a big narc who pitted her children against each other. Trash talked about both of us and did the same to SIL. By then we were done with both sides of his family. Suddenly, thanks to technology, he was able to find his mother, and along with SIL they agreed to meet, at least to know her version of story. According to Mill, FIL was an abusive crap who beat her, and once he broke her front teeth. When she left, he did everything to impede contact with her children. She sent gifts and money for years, and FIL would claim them as his, or the cash would never arrive to DH/SIL. The guy even tried to pass a corpse in the morgue as hers. Needless to say, DH was livid, and it took a while for him to process all this new info that sadly matched circumstances. MIL seemed to be a good woman, and had a son who always knew about DH and SIL, so we began visits for tea and special occasions, not pretending to be family, but more as an experiment. When I got pregnant, MIL was the first to know, because my parents are the Janels. She got baby rabies. hard. SIL had young kids, and she felt that this was her chance to bond and be a grandma. Never mind, this pregnancy was unplanned and that I didn't want to keep it, but had no choice because termination is illegal here. She could only think of baby, same for BAL. In fact, their baby rabies was so much that crap got on DH and my nerves, as it was the only thing they seemed to ask about. Fast forward last months of pregnancy. I had already accepted my fate and wanted to meet my child. DH was nothing but supportive and eager. BAL makes an ass of himself by texting DH Amir, "Is she born yet?" And then we went LC. I give birth with DH as my only company. 3 weeks later, we had MIL come meet the baby. She overstays and pokes baby trying to listen her cry because it's cute, dotes on her and crap. Mostly BC, so we let her be. Then Xmas and New Year without contact. SIL throws a tantrum in truly narc fashion for not being informed of our baby's birth after a long time of no contact. We knew MIL is easy prey for guilt tripping and was empathic to her. But months of no contact. Really? Some days ago it was DH's birthday. I got him beer and cake. Baby behaved well, and we could have adult fun and naps. His friends, co-workers, and boss greeted him. No, not even a text. She has greeted him previous years. SIL did neither, but it was nothing to him, because he decided to NC with her after the last tantrum of many. But MIL just ghosted. Maybe she sided with SIL, or maybe has gone the pathetic route of "I don't want to bother you." Woman, get your crap together. If you wanted to come back after 20 years, I expected better than ghosting DH later. But at least he doesn't seem to be TO affected. Disappointed maybe. Anyway, me and baby are his family. We got his back. I guess we're now officially NC with both of our birth families. I'd still like to give her a piece of my mind if she comes back. But it's not my place. Poor DH, he deserves so much better. The next story is an update, and it is titled, "Is Helicopter Gothel the center of a cult for herself?" 6 months NC. Time seems to fly. Too bad we are still neighbors with the loons. I think Helicopter Gothel has been all of her life trying to overcompensate for whatever had happened to her, if by acting as if the whole world owed her something. And while going down that path, she surrounds herself with enablers, flying monkeys and admirers. Anyone who does not provide her narc supply is deemed crazy, stupid, a creep, etc. She needs to control the narrative. So, while reading Ask Reddit on people who was in cults, it hit me that I grew up in a similar environment. Let's see the cultish in this madness. The charismatic leader. HG is so charming. Most of the time people will comment about how nice she is, how young she looks. The perfect mom, the creative woman, the entrepreneur. She really is not especially good at any of these fronts, but works hard to keep the facade and expects everyone else to do the same for her and also provide praise. She thinks she has the gift of knowing upon mere sight the quality of a person. Pretends that all of her dreams are premonitory or spiritual messages. Also claimed to have a special connection with babies, indigo adult, and is the arbiter in every family matter. Her approval is deemed as the way to know if something is good or bad. Her image is everything. Their own belief system. New Age potpourri suited to her needs. So, you get reincarnation, karma, past lives, but also angels in some kind of energy. Homeopathy is almost the only sort of medicine allowed. Also, any ritual of any belief system that might suit her needs is adopted. And of course, that she thinks that women on her side, mother and sister, have spiritual gifts too. I was the oracle and provided aura and rune readings. So of course, they know it all and you don't. And if you get sick, it's because you harbor negative energy. The closed community. And it's versus the mentality. If somebody crosses one member of HG clique, it's expected that all the rest of the family sides against them in every case. Don't you dare suggest it may be a gray area. No meet HG death stare to shut up. All this shunning. From her ignoring me /bro/dad at our very own house if we is agreed. Through all the family not talking to me or so after we went no contact with her. None of them. Some even seem afraid to greet us in the street. My own brother never texts. The times I'd talked to him, it felt as if it had to be a secret. H.E. was obsessed with the idea of every family member living close to each other. With her side, it happens. Everybody lives on a 10-minute drive radio. They expected me and so to buy the house we're renting, so this would be a 3-house row with the same family. Sometimes they even discussed about buying a lot away from city and move there in a bunch of pre-made houses to be really close. But this only applies to her side of family. She actively dislikes all of her SIL families. Barely any contact with them. So family, but not family actually. She also fantasized with having a matriarch in the family. Because let's say no male in here, where's the pants? GGMA, a JNO in her own right, was supposed to have the position. But upon her death it was obvious that HG is in the role of presiding every family supper and matter. Every new partner is expected to be introduced to the family before being approved into a relationship. Then will be me mocked to test their submissiveness to the family. They did this to my so and have done the same to HG's sister boyfriends too. My so was clever and kept calm, so they left him alone. With the years they learnt not to mess with him, but she still liked him until he refused to cater every of her whims, dressed differently, getting a job she approved, going out of his way for her errands. Then he became fat, dirty, smelly, sleazy, and he had the eyes of a violent man. Classy, Mom. I shouldn't have put up with that crap. H.E.'s sister, on the other side, remained single. Her alleged virginity, being her past her 30s, is a family matter. Maybe if they quit bullying every male that comes close, and she would tone down her almost emotional incestuous relationship with her mother and H.E. None of H.E. SIL have their approval, so when they're not around, nastiest things will be said. From cheating to bad mother to witchcraft, and having criminal family. One of them divorced, but seriously, and she badmouths her brothers too. How dare they do not do things just like she said. In fact, recently divorced brothers shared a family supper's plans for new life. I'm neighbor so I could listen to them in the yard. And then his whole family ganged up on him so he wouldn't move from H.E. mother's house to another place where he could bring his girlfriend. Because he's no way bringing her here. Outsiders are to be used or shunned. Just like going to a faraway utopic planet, H.E. has her own air castle, opening some sort of business about healthy food. Mind you, she might have organizational skills from Parents' Council and her dance events, but doesn't know crap about business. When I was underage, she dragged me with her to do kiddie birthday parties entertainment, where she undercharged. Never took into account the logistics of carrying a puppet's tent when you own a car and underpaid me. But now she swears she'll at a cafeteria or such, staffed by her family. She really believed that my so would leave his job to work in her imaginary business, that I would do paperwork for her, that my brother must do the advertising materials and be there too. That's why he left his job and slacks in her house, and that her mother's friend, a woman who owns big business and makes big figures, must be convinced to put her money on this idea. Because H.E. doesn't see people, she sees assets or obstacles. If you have some talent she can use, she'll sweet-talk you and drag you into an uneven collab that benefits her more, obviously. Maybe you can even join the external circle of her admirers. Tell her no and you'll be called greedy, malicious, jealous. Yeah, you know which side my so and me were put when we politely declined to be part of her imaginary business. We obviously had no sense of family. So now that I'm parentless by choice, if asked, I think that I can vaguely say that I grew up in a sort of cult, and that means so ran away. The next story is an update, and it is titled, It Finally Happened. After 7 months NC, I stumbled upon Helicopter Gothel, twice. As I've told you, we lived next door, but somehow I had managed to not see her since past September. Today, so, Abby and I went for a long walk to buy a heater. A few meters from the house, and there she comes, walking in opposite direction. Both she and I wore sunglasses, so I couldn't tell exactly her expression, but guys, the epitome of CBF. the frowning. We kept walking and having a funny conversation. I thought I would feel something, but aside from disgust, so I made some fun from her and kept with our business. A simple stain on a nice afternoon, wasn't it? A couple of hours later, we were coming back, passing by her house, and there she is again, about to open her fence. We stand in front of our house and decide to get back 3 houses down to some neighbor's sandwich place. We get there, I sit, then ducking, helicopter Gotha walks by. She took her sweet time opening her fence just to avoid us. My so still laughs and jokes about her counting the keys to take longer before going out. Meaning too busy stuffing my face with delicious food. Nice end for something I thought would be worse. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the Just No Mother-in-Law stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and write a comment. I really appreciate your support, and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.